Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Childless Not by Choice. Before we get started, I would like to thank my sponsors and my supporters. First, I would like to thank Morgan Air Conditioning, Sales, Service, and Installation, serving Tampa, Florida, and the surrounding areas. Morgan Air can be reached by calling 813-500-7765. That's 813-500-7765. Thank you, Morgan Air, for recognizing the vision of Childless Not by Choice and being a part of it. And thank you for all your work in the community. Next, I would like to thank Alba Digital Media for creating my website, www.childlessnotbychoice.net, and for producing this podcast. To contact Alba Digital Media for your web building and podcast production needs, visit www.albadigitalmedia.com. That's www.albadigitalmedia.com. Thank you, Alba Digital Media, for making me look good and sound good. Finally, I would like to thank Devoted, the musical duo who created my theme music. Thank you, Devoted, for your beautiful music and your awesome talent. To contact Devoted for your music needs, email devotedministries@gmail.com. That's devotedministries@gmail.com. And if you would like to become a one-time or ongoing sponsor of Childless Not by Choice, please contact me at Civilla@CivillaMorgan.com. That's Civilla@CivillaMorgan.com. Thank you so much for listening, and now on to the show. Well, hello everyone, Civilla Morgan here. Welcome back to Childless Not by Choice, where my mission is to recognize and speak to the broken hearts of childless, not by choice women and men around the world. I am spreading the great news that we can live a joyful, relevant, and fulfilled life, although we did not have the children we so wanted. Well, as we continue on with this episode, I want to thank my Patreon contributors. Patreon contributors are those who have taken an interest in my platform, whether they fit the Childless Not by Choice demographic or not. They have decided to contribute a certain dollar amount on a regular basis to help fund my dream of creating awareness and conversation for the Childless Not by Choice community globally. And so click the Patreon link below for details and to become a patron. I want to thank my two patrons, the podcaster Sarah Williams of the Tough Girls podcast and one Jordan Morgan. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me for this awesome ride of a lifetime of creating awareness, conversing on a subject that most people don't want to talk about. They look the other way, and even mitigating the hurt through the podcast episodes, interviews, and everything else we have going on the platform. Well, today we have a special guest. Ms. Halona Black is on a mission to help women realize how to fight the battle against fibroids. And as you can see, that's the title of the of this episode, The War on Fibroids, my interview with Ms. Halona Black. And Halona says that she is not a physician or nurse. She's simply an advocate for women's wellness, and she wants to guide women through making choices regarding their reproductive health through an integrative approach. That means that food and lifestyle are of the utmost importance. And she also teaches cooking classes, so we're going to get into that as we continue our conversation here. But as many of you may realize, I had planned at the very beginning of this year to highlight proper nutrition, exercise, and this is just continuing through. It's happened all through the year, and I'm so excited that one of my last episodes of the year 2017 is going to be with a woman who, I don't know if she knows this or not, but she's going to be in my wheelhouse. fibroids, and hysterectomy. That would be me. That's my path. So I'm so excited to be able to talk to her today. So welcome to the podcast, Halona. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful, Civilla. Thank you for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here. And I guess to start off, we hear this term a lot. It's a buzz term right now, but I've got to know, what is your why? We hear that term a lot, but what put you on the journey to battle fibroids?
Wow. It's been a journey that actually started maybe about five or 6 years ago now. I had fibroids, and for anyone who's ever had fibroids, fibroids can get to a point where they can take over your complete entire life.
Your being.
Absolutely. The fibroids can sort of give you this sort of distended belly, sort of, pregnant look, and people are asking you if you're pregnant and you're not. It can cause a lot of very heavy menstrual bleeding, which, very much takes over your life, and your life just sort of becomes consumed by how it is that you can organize your life around the fact that you have fibroids. And so at the same time that my fibroids had, just gotten to a point where I couldn't really deal with them anymore, and I was looking for ways to be able to just get rid of them, there was a lot of other things going on in my life. I was married to another man at the time, and our relationship, had pretty much come to an end point, and we couldn't live with each other without arguing all the time. I was in a very high stress level job working in education, that I loved my students, but the job in itself was just very, very stressful. I was, working way too many hours, and we're taking work home on the weekends. I had lost my mom around that time to breast cancer, and she was only 49 years old.
Oh, wow.
And that was a lot of added stress of thinking, at the time I was thinking, she had breast cancer, and watching her, come to the end of her life, and, are cancer and fibroids, are they related? And no one could really answer that question for me. So that was looming around in my mind. And I was also in a doctoral program in education that I really wasn't happy with. And so I had all of these different stressors in my life going on, and I didn't really connect the fact that my lifestyle was just so full of stress, and the fact that I had fibroids. All I knew was that I just had these foreign things in my uterus, and I wanted them to just be gone. Mm-hmm. And so what many of us do is we, as you should, is that you go to your gynecologist, and you talk to your gynecologist about your options for getting rid of the fibroids. And of course they say, well, you can use birth control pills just to sort of help out with the hormones. They don't really give you an explanation as to what the birth control pills will actually do. And then they said, but eventually you'll probably need some sort of a surgery to either get rid of the fibroids themselves, or if it's really progressed to a certain level, we may have to remove the uterus, and, you would get a hysterectomy. Mm-hmm. And none of that really seemed, and none of it really seemed like a positive plan of action for me. Right. I knew there had to be something else. I didn't really know what at the time, but just, something in my being said that there was something else. And watching my mom with her breast cancer, she actually had battled breast cancer for a long time. It was a good 10 years. And so over the 10 years, I had seen her do things like change her diet, do things like exercise and do all sorts of things to be able to help her have a better quality of life, even with the breast cancer. And so my brain was just sort of on that path. There's got to be another way to at least be able to manage the fibroids a bit better. And so what I did was I decided to start writing about it. I had always been an avid writer. I had written a lot of stuff related to what I was doing in education. And I decided that I wanted to do something for myself. And so I started an online blog where I just started writing about stuff that I wanted. What do I want in my life? Because I really didn't know. I've really felt like all of the things that I had worked for, my career, my marriage, the fact that we couldn't have any children at the time, all these things were really just sort of weighing really heavy on my spirit. And so I turned to writing as a way to be able to help me just to be able to start to figure out what it is that I wanted. And within that, I wound up getting a surgery to get the fibroids removed. So it's called a myomectomy, where they actually, it's just a surgery to remove the fibroids themselves, and your uterus stays intact. And that worked out fine at the time. But 6 months later, I found out after the surgery that the fibroids were growing back. And so there was still a lot of things that I didn't do as far as changing my lifestyle was concerned. And I didn't want to get to another point where my fibroids were going to be taking over my life the way that they did several months beforehand. So I started to stick to the writing. I started to explore a lot of the food and lifestyle issues that I had started to get into. And that was really how this whole thing started. And that was really my why. It was just really, it really was a personal need to be able to heal myself. And over time, it became something where other women were attracted to me because I was being so open and honest about what it is that I wanted and the things that they were going through. Because at the time, you couldn't really find a lot of information about fibroids from a personal perspective. Everything was really just a clinical explanation of what fibroids were and how you can get rid of them surgically. There was really no, how is it that I'm dealing with the fact that I have fibroids, how my husband was dealing with the fact that I have fibroids, and those sorts of issues. So that's really where it all started.
So I listened to your story, and I hear a lot of similarities. And one thing that just stuck out to me was that we tend to hide what's going on with us. And so many times, if we could just be, and you have to be called to be open. Put it that way. I guess you kind of have to be called to be open, because who wants to really talk about the things that are going on in their life, such personal things? We consider these things so personal, and we think we're the only ones going through it. And typically what I've found in my 3-year journey of creating and building this platform is that every time I'm in a group situation with women, there are at least 2 women in the group who are childless not by choice, or suffering from some medical reason that caused them to be childless not by choice, such as fibroids or PCOS or endometriosis or what have you, but nobody wants to talk about it. Right. And so just the fact that you decided, you said you felt something in your being saying that there has to be another way, there has to be something else. You got to the point where you had to speak out about it. And so I just applaud you for that, because I know it's not easy. And
it's not. And I had really done it, not really thinking that, how bloggers start things today with this expectation that, they're going to write this big one post that's going to go viral eventually. But really, it was just me. It was more of a personal journal is really how it started. I really just wanted to be able to write as a way for me to be able to process what it is that I want, what I want my life to look like, and all those sorts of things. And it was really just an added benefit that I started attracting all of these other women literally from around the planet.
Mm-hmm.
who were dealing with the same issue and were Googling the same sort of information, but they couldn't find anything. They were asking me, what questions should I ask when I go to my doctor?
Mm-hmm.
How do I explain this to my husband? My husband's not understanding of the fact that I'm unable to get pregnant because of the fibroids. What does that conversation look like? And all these other questions. So so really, it really was a calling to be open and honest about it, because I really didn't expect for people to read it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, because like you said, it's personal to you. And I guess what I keep telling the women in my Facebook group is a lot of times because we don't share these things, we feel like it's only us. We feel like an island until we find out there are 7 billion people on this planet. There is no way it can only be you. And that's
Right.
what I keep telling them, there's got to be millions of us if it's 7 billion people on the planet. And so my little group of 238 women are now realizing that we do need to get together and talk about this and commiserate without grumbling, because that's how my platform is set up. It's set up to create understanding and awareness without continuing to be down in the dumps for the rest of your life, feeling that this is it, this is the end. I was not able to have kids, the end. And so the women are now realizing, and they're bringing more in, because for so long my group had 12 people in it. For so many months, 12 people, and now it just exploded, and it's continuing to grow. And it's because women are finding out. Another thing that you said, there was no information back in the day. When I needed help years ago, just a handful of years ago, there was nothing. I couldn't
Mhm.
find any help. And now wherever I look online, there's a bunch of childless, not by choice Facebook groups. But
Yeah.
I just keep my blinders on and keep on going, because I feel called to do what I'm doing as well. So another thing that you mentioned is when you are speaking out, especially on a subject matter like this, you might as well just tell it like it is. There's no need to hide, because what's the point in hiding some things? You've got to really just get it all out there. I mean, without you have to use common sense as to what you say about your business, but just being able to let women see that they really are not the only ones suffering, and that you quite understand what they're going through. So I just really
Yeah.
applaud you for that.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think it's important for people to be honest about what it is that they are going through. And even even if it wasn't an issue about fibroids or being childless, not by choice, um, just the things that go on with women's bodies in itself, in and of itself. When you're reaching puberty as a teenager, we're not encouraged to be able to sit down and talk about what that honestly looked like,
Mm-hmm.
and how it's different for different people, or even to sit down and have that sort of conversation with your mom, if you were lucky to have your mom around at that time. And so it's really ingrained in many of our cultures to not for women to not talk about what's going on with us, how it is that we feel, and how it is that we're dealing with day-to-day life. We're just expected to just sort of put our head down and just sort of deal with it in our own little quiet way.
And to just get it by osmosis. you know we're just supposed to it's just supposed to happen in our brains that we understand what to do next at 12 or 13.
Hmm.
So
Exactly.
yeah,
Hmm.
I totally agree with you. Kind of turning the conversation a little bit, you mentioned that herbal remedies are wonderful. And do you create remedies? And tell us more about the herbal remedies.
Yeah, I do not. I'm not an herbalist, and I don't create things on my own. But I do have some things that I keep for myself, that I buy from other companies. So one of the things that have helped me a lot is an herb called Vitex. That's Vitex,
Mm-hmm.
and that is it's an herb that comes from, I believe it's called chaste berry,
Mm.
And basically what it does is it helps to eliminate some of the excess estrogen in your body for, for people who have fibroids. Part of the reason that many of us have fibroids is because there's an excess of estrogen in the body. And so the Vitex will help you to lower the estrogen and increase the progesterone in the body. And it, the explanation of how hormones work can get very, very complicated. And because of the fact that I'm not a physician, I would rather just sort of keep the explanation at that point. And if you have other questions, you can go to an herbalist to be able to ask, how it works and whether or not it would be good for you. But I do use Vitex. And then I've used other things like liver cleansers. And the reason why I use liver cleansers is because estrogen is metabolized within the liver. And so within the liver, if you can get your liver to work better, that means that it will better be able to metabolize the estrogen. However, at the same time, when you are cleaning out your liver, the mistake that a lot of people make is that their colon is also clogged. And so whatever waste comes from the liver goes to the colon. But if your colon is clogged, that means that all that excess estrogen is just going to be reabsorbed into your body, which, of course, is not a good thing. So what you want to do as far as a place to be able to start, if you're not really ready for the herbal thing yet, is to be able to increase the amount of fruits and vegetables that you eat, which will help you to unclog your colon. Because everybody I know has a clogged colon. I mean, everybody's constipated. Everybody.
It's the American way.
It is because of how our food and our lifestyles are set up. But you don't have to, and I'm not advocating that everyone become a vegetarian. However, I think that everyone could benefit from adding more fruits and vegetables into their daily diet.
I completely
and that will help to get rid of some of the constipation, which will help your liver in turn to be able to work more efficiently.
I completely agree. And as we sit here, I just had breakfast and I still have some papaya here that I'm so looking forward to because I picked a sweet one. So it's like dessert. Seriously, it's that sweet. But papaya has, all of these different fruits and vegetables have there are reasons for them existing on the planet. They're here for a reason. But the Western culture is just not good at sticking to that number of fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. And I just thought about this. I've been to Belize, I was born in the Caribbean. So, Caribbean people love their ground provisions and vegetables and all that stuff and fish and all that stuff. But I'll never remember the first time I went to Belize, which the listeners who are not aware, Belize is in Central America. And on one of my first visits, instead of selling here in America, there's the corner store. I don't know if you remember as a kid going to the corner store and buying candy on the way to school or on the way home from school, candy and chips. But I did growing up in Massachusetts, right outside of Boston. So there was always a corner store. So we were always buying junk food on the way home. And anyway, what I noticed when I went to Belize was they were selling fruit on the corner, little bagged fruit. I was like, what is this? The kids were buying the fruit on the way home from school. I was like, this is amazing. I've never seen this before. Some shops had chips and all of that, but a lot of the kids were buying little bags of the fruit that the vendor had cut up and put in plastic baggies, and they'd sell it for $1 or whatever. And these kids were just buying fruit on the way home. It was amazing to me. I was just like, wow.
Yeah, that is a big wow. That makes my whole heart smile. If you could actually see, my face right now, it really does. It makes my heart smile to be able to see that, at least in the United States, for
Mhm.
many of us, we get told that the things that we eat, our natural way of eating, actually is not healthy, and really that's not true, because many of us come from other places where all of these fruits and vegetables are
Mhm.
available in plenty. They're available in abundance, and so the difficulty comes when you come to the United States, and you have to work within seasons, and then of course it depends on where you live in the United States, and your access to getting all sorts of fresh fruits and vegetables
Mhm.
can be limited depending on where you are. And so you grow up with this sort of warped sense of what it is that you're supposed to eat and what it is that you're not supposed to eat. And so, yeah, so eating all those fresh fruits and vegetables, from the ladies who live in the community, and have it lovingly prepared and put in a nice little plastic baggie for
Mhm.
you to be able to buy and eat on your way to school or on your way home from school. That's the way to be able to do it. That's how you teach your children to be able to have better eating habits. So hopefully they don't grow up and have all of these health issues like fibroids and PCOS and endometriosis and all these other things.
Mhm. True, true, true. And I know that my repeat listeners know that unfortunately for me, I had three myomectomies over the
Mm.
course of 10 years before finally having a hysterectomy in 2011. So I know all about that journey, and that kind of leads me to the next question. And basically, a few years ago, after my hysterectomy, I went to a natural medicine doctor for an issue other than the hysterectomy issues. I don't remember what it was. It may have been I had migraines a lot from the time I was 11 until just a few years ago.
Mm.
And after a few visits, I stopped going because she kept telling me almost every visit that I would, make to her store or her shop or, her business, she would tell me that if I had come to see her first, I never would have had a hysterectomy. And after
Wow.
hearing that so many times, I just felt like garbage. I was just like,
Mm.
I,
Yeah.
I don't think I want to keep hearing that because you can't undo a hysterectomy.
Right.
And
Hmm.
so I just stopped going to her. So the reason I'm bringing that up is that you say that living a happy life is important, of course. It's
Hmm.
also important for women to know that even if they have lost their womb due to fibroids or other issues, it is still important for them to take care of their reproductive health, or health, I should say, unquote. So, how exactly does a woman take care of her reproductive health if she no longer has a womb?
Well, estrogen can still be an issue whether you have a womb or not.
Okay.
Because there are many other types of cancers like breast cancer that are fed from estrogen.
Mhm.
And so it's still very much important for you to be able to still pay attention to what it is that you're eating. If you notice, before your cycle, if you're still getting very sore breasts, then that often is an indication that you have some excess estrogen um, still running in your system.
Mm.
So I don't want for women who no longer have a womb to think that it's something that I don't have to worry about anymore. Um, when in fact you should still be concerned about your personal and your reproductive health, because your womb is only one part of your reproductive system. So it's still very much important for you to be able to pay attention to what it is that you're eating. Are you happy with this sort of job that you're doing? A lot of people are absolutely miserable with the job that they're doing, and you're spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week doing it.
Mhm.
Are you happy with your personal relationships, whether it's your spouse, the person that you're dating, or if you're just a single person and then you're still trying to figure out, is there a person out there for you? Are you living the life that you want to be able to live, or are you
Mm.
living someone else's dream? All of
Wow.
these things are really, really important to you having a happy and healthy life.
Hmm. That's heavy. Because another thing I say continually is that life is short. It is so short. And as you mentioned, your mom was only 49, and my deepest condolences on your loss, because
Thank
I know
you.
that's a loss that you know, you never quite get over, but you just manage. And so I really want to extend my deepest condolences. And at 49, that's young, you
It
know?
is. It's very young.
Yeah.
And I'm 40 years old now, and she was diagnosed when she was 39.
Oh.
And so it's always in the back of my mind.
Hmm.
um could I be like her? Could I be like her? And for several years up to my 39th birthday, it weighed very heavy on my spirit,
Mm.
to say, I can't be like my mom. I don't want to live, and die in such a traumatic way at such an early age. And it's only been very recent, within probably the last year, that I've decided that it's time to let that go and just feel like I'm doing all that I can already to be able to be as healthy as possible. And I just need to be able to continue that. And I can create my own legacy. I do not have to uh, uh, come to the same fate that my mother did. We're two separate people.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So it's been a ride
Hmm.
for me to be able to come to that conclusion, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that I'm finally able to say that.
Yeah, that's an awesome realization and conclusion to come to. And, um, I think too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think too that when you suffer a loss like that, whenever something traumatic happens in our lives, we have a choice of just going the negative way, which
Mhm.
it's normal. It's normal to at least be in that place for a time, or we can make the decision to push on and live a life that honors that person. So you're living a life that honors your mom by living
Mhm.
the best life that you possibly can. So, that's to be admired.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's a beautiful way to be able to say that too. When you live your life, you honor the people who come before you.
exactly. So, so some of the women in my group have had hysterectomies, including
Mhm.
myself. And so I wonder, do you have any examples where someone was helped post hysterectomy, that's gone through your programs, which we'll discuss a little bit more in just a minute?
How they've been helped.
Right.
Well, I think that it's important to be able to realize that just because you no longer have a womb, that doesn't mean that all the other areas of your life may still need tending to.
Hmm.
So just like I was talking about women and realizing whether or not um, they like their job. Are you in a space where you're feeling appreciated at your job? Do you feel creative? Um, do you are you getting up in the morning and you cry on your way to work?
Mm.
I used to be like that. I would wake up and my prayer every morning was, I hope that there's a pink slip on my desk when I get in there, so I don't have to deal with any of the stress of the job anymore. That's really a sad existence when you get to that point and you're praying for a pink slip on your desk.
Been there, done
Um,
that.
yeah, and so what I think a lot of what women will get out of working with me, whether they still have their womb or not,
Hmm.
is the fact that I think that women still need answers as to why it is that they've lost their womb, and they want to be able to go to a place where they feel comfortable with talking to someone who can sympathize with what it is that they're going through. because just like you said that you had spoken to the doctor who kept, making comments about, well, if you had done this, you probably would have never lost your womb in the first place, which is really rather insensitive to have to keep saying that over and over again. And so I think for a lot of women, they need some sort of closure to be able to understand how and why they had gotten to a point where they had lost their womb. And in most cases, it really isn't, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
And I think women need to be in a space where they can get that sort of understanding, but also be able to connect all of those other spaces in their lives where they're unhappy or are feeling unfulfilled, and want to be able to get to a point of feeling fulfilled again, whether you've been able to have children or not. I think that's super important.
It is, and that's part of the byline on the platform here is to continue, although you didn't get to have the children, to live a relevant, fulfilled, and joyful life anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I totally agree with that. And that kind of leads into my next question is, tell us more about your 10-day detox. Tell us about the book. And
Sure.
I saw it on Amazon, as I mentioned before the interview, but if it's any place else, tell us about that as well, please.
Yeah, well, when I started my blog, I had written a lot about the things that I was learning about food and health and wellness and how to just take care of yourself in general. And, over time, I had developed this sort of this sort of a protocol, if you will, of things that I had done for myself to be able to keep myself healthy. I would notice that, if I ate certain things, it would make my cycle a lot heavier in 1 month. And then when I would sort of detox my way out of that, my cycle would become lighter. I noticed that when I was in a particular period of really hardcore stress, whether it was home stress or work stress, it would also affect my cycle and in turn the size of the fibroids. And so over time, women started asking me, can you put this into some sort of book or product or a class or, something that would help us to be able to figure out what it is that you're doing, because there was nothing out there for people. And so I put a challenge out to myself to be able to create a book, an ebook, within the course of a month. And it was really just taking some of the best parts of the blog and the things that were working for me and to putting it into one space. And so the detox ebook is really about some of the basics of healthy eating. And not necessarily advocating that everyone become an instant vegetarian overnight, because people are in different spaces with their eating habits. But I just wanted people to be aware on how their food choices actually affected their fibroid growth, along with all of the other areas of their personal well-being. So again, are you happy in your career? Are you exercising? Do you have some sort of a spiritual life? Are you doing things that are creative? All of those things are things that I ask you to consider over a course of 10 days. And so the first part is really just the basics of healthy eating. And then I go into the journal, 10 days of journal questions, where you're just sort of reflecting on what are the things that you are doing on a day-to-day basis that's affecting your fibroid growth. And then I have a whole menu plan that I started to create towards the back, where they're all recipes that I created. And some of them are inspired from my interest in other cultures, and really just helping women to be able to figure out, how do I start? What is it that I can do with myself before I go to the doctor or anything else? What are the things that I can do myself to be able to help to get myself on some sort of a road to recovery? Because when you go to your doctor, many of them will say, if you're not really at a point where you really need a surgery, they'll just do the sit and wait method, which, is really not helpful, because you're just sitting and waiting for a surgery to happen, but you're not really being proactive about learning about, what can I eat or what can I change in my lifestyle to be able to hopefully lessen the chance that you'll even need a surgery in the first place. Because, a lot of doctors are not trained in that sort of a way. They don't learn about health and nutrition. What they're really trained on is how to be able to get you to take some sort of pharmaceutical drugs or get you into a surgery. That's just how the medical system works in the United States of America. And so, the book is really just a starting point, a jump start really for women to be able to learn what they need to be able to eat, what are the things that they're currently doing that might be contributing to their fibroid growth, and then giving them some examples of what they can do in their own kitchen to be able to help them to eat better.
And the fact is, we as you said, because medical doctors are trained to do surgery and give medications, man-made medications, we, the public, women who are going through these things, we just, like, I think back to myself again. My doctor, which I loved my surgeon. I appreciated him waiting with me because that's what he did. And he was a second opinion doctor, which is another thing I talk about a lot. Have a list of questions when you go to your doctor. If you're not feeling a good vibe from the doctor, change doctors or at least get a second opinion. And so on that level, I've said, get involved with yourself. And now on another level, I didn't know that I could have been proactive, or even maybe how to be proactive, because I didn't know that diet had anything to do with it. I didn't do the research, and I'm a researcher, but I didn't think to do the research. And so again, I really just love the fact that your platform exists, because now we can get the word out that you can be proactive when you have fibroids, and do the research and check on what you're eating and not eating, and not rely on the doctor for everything, because they don't know. Most doctors mean well, but they just don't know. They weren't trained that way. So this is really awesome. I really love this. And so your book, it's an ebook. It's on Amazon. Is it any place else? Is it a physical book?
Just on Amazon at the moment. Okay. I also have a printed workbook. And people can contact me if they're interested in getting in the actual printed workbook. That way, you'll have a space where you can actually sit down and write within the book. In that way, it works as a journal a lot better in the printed form than it does in the ebook.
And, I meant to say this earlier, because you mentioned this much earlier, but writing, another thing I talk about a lot, and I invite the women in my group to be guest bloggers. I really believe that writing is cathartic, and it helps in the healing process for those who are just not going to have the children or the child. And how do you deal with it? How do you get it out of your system? And I think that's by putting it on paper. So I invite all the women in the group to become guest bloggers when they're ready. And right now in November, actually, we're doing 30 days of gratitude. And I know some people may listen and think, wow, it's tough not to be able to have the child, and you still want to have gratitude. You want to be thankful about it. But I think, again, gratitude is another way of dealing with pain. There's got to be something we're thankful for. And so it's just another reason to write. So I'm getting them to really just write as much as they can on the platform. So I agree with you, as you said, you were blogging, that it has had to have helped you, at least on some level, to get the words on paper. And then to have the workbook, it's a way for people to see what they're writing and actually get it on piece of paper and have it in black and white. So I think that's awesome. So
yeah, it increases a woman's sense of self-worth. There's so many things out there that tell us that if you must do X, Y, and Z as a woman Otherwise, you'll be considered less than a woman,
Right.
and that's really unfair. You're the only person who really gets to decide, who you are as a woman, how it is that you want to be able to show up in the world as a woman. And even though, having children may have been a part of that, if for whatever reason it just hasn't happened for you yet, or that you've had a hysterectomy and that this is just not going to happen for you in the way that you may have wanted it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can still have a very beautiful and full and meaningful life. It's just you have to be able to find a way to be able to do that on your own. And I find writing to be one of the really great ways for you to be able to find your self-worth again.
I totally agree. Well, as we wrap things up, I just want to let everybody know that Halona's contact information is in the show notes, the web address, and the ebook is on Amazon. It's called Loving My Fibroids Away, a 10-day detox plan, Kindle edition. And it's quite affordable. So I would say if you are one of the women or you know someone who is suffering or on the fibroids path, then I would say definitely check it out, and check out the course on the website as well. I think that'll help with your conversations with your doctors and with taking ownership and control as much as you can as to what's going on with you with the fibroids. And so, is there anything else, anything I missed before we wrap it up here? Anything I should have discussed or asked you about?
No, I mean, if women are interested, if they're interested in a printed workbook, I still have a few copies of that available.
Okay.
If they are interested in that, the cost for that is $37. It also comes with a copy of a telesummit that I did on interviewing various women within natural health and wellness. So if they want a copy of that, they can email me at hello, HELLO, at garlicandlemonsmag.com.
I'm typing that into the show notes right now. Hello at garlicandlemonsmag. And what was the rest?
.com.
.com. Okay. So hello at garlicandlemonsmag.com for the physical workbook.
Mm-hmm.
And it's $37. Okay, let me put that in there. Okay, and so, Halona, I want to just thank you so much for your time on this Saturday morning. You could so easily have been sleeping in because we're all so busy. And so I really just appreciate you taking the time to do this. I just wish I'd known about this before, but I don't think I should beat myself up, and I don't think anyone else should either. We know what we needed to know at the time, and everything happens for a reason. And I'm just glad that you're in the space and that you will be able to help women going forward. So I just want to really thank you for your time today. And everybody, just thanks for tuning in and listening in. And please, if you have any questions for Halona, just please feel free to contact her. And of course, my information is in the show notes as well, my contact information. Thank you so very much for listening in today. And until next time, have a great one. Bye.